Okay.
Hey
What's up,
everybody,
y'all?
Pastor Mike here from our home on the range. Sweetie Pie had surgery Thursday morning, pretty early, and so I've been taking care of her the last few days. And she's doing well. She's sore, resting, and so we appreciate everybody's prayers and your understanding. This is another surgery related to her cancer from a few years back. She's not had any signs of any cancer since then, and we are very, very thankful for that. So anyway, a new video came out. Let me go back. I gotta throw in this note, or I'll forget it. And I've got my MUFON hat on today for a reason. A video came up in my feed this morning from YouTube, and it was a series that the BBC, I think, had done on the Israeli spy agency Mossad. And so that looked interesting to me. So I pulled it up, and of course they're going to give background on the Israel as a nation, as a state, as a legally recognized state on this earth, which came about in 1947. The United Nations took a vote to partition or repartition this area of land between the Mediterranean and the Dead Sea and the Jordan River that was called Palestine. It previously was, that whole area was under British protection. It was a protectorate of the British Empire. But if I remember right, 1917, the Balfour Declaration basically lifted that area out from underneath the being part of the Commonwealth or the protectorate of the United Kingdom. In other words, the Brits had Palestine for years. They ruled over it. They were the law. They enforced laws, whatever. And then in the Balfour Declaration, they took it off and just let them be whatever they want to be. So, in 1947, the United Nations took a vote. Now, I knew this part, to partition this area of Palestine and give those people...
I gotta... And I lift my voice to worship you.
Palestinians, a portion of it. In 1947, the United Nations took a vote. Now, I knew this part, to partition this area of Palestine and give those people, those Arab people referred to as Palestinians, a portion of it and give the rest to the Jews, the people of Israel, the 12 tribes, as a homeland. They said, we just about got slaughtered completely in the Holocaust. So we're not going to do that again. We need a place to call our own. And so they did. And then the documentary went on to talk about how soon after they formed as a nation, they got in the intelligence business, because they said, we're not going to let this happen again. Nobody's going to slip up behind our backs and just kill us and try to wipe us off the map. And if you've lived in this century, in the last century, then you know that there's hardly been a year that goes by that some Arab nation doesn't want to try its hand at getting rid of Israel. And I don't care what your views are. I really don't. When God made a promise to Abram, it's a promise he intended to keep. He said, I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse him that curse thee. And I don't curse Israel by saying, I am Israel now. I've replaced Israel. God's not going to deal with the Jews anymore. I don't do that.
Oh, that's right. I went and got the...
Getting back to that vote, to me this is significant. And I don't know why I never caught this before. I can't remember if I've ever heard it before and just dismissed it. I don't think it's in any of my notes anywhere. Take a guess at the number of people that voted in the United Nations at that time to give that land to Israel. Setting up, then the next year, 1948, Israel declares itself a state, a nation. 33 was the number. And I'm going, that's got to be significant. It does. And I'm not prepared to go all into it. But are you kidding me? 33 men basically voted to give life to a Israel state. And the most famous 33 Jewish person in the world was Jesus Christ. Okay? So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out to you. I shared it with a couple guys this morning, so you're not the first to hear about it. You're the second. But it was to be pretty interesting. Then we hear that Pope Benedict is now officially paying for all of his sins and his crimes and all of the idolatry. I'm not trying to be mean, but God's word is God's word. The rule book is the rule book. God did not say you can't make images and idols unless they're blessed by the Pope and they're an actual... I got to thinking about this the other day. What is it, and I know the answer to this, but what is it that makes a church an official Catholic church? Can you get a shed and move into it and set benches and add things up and say this is a Catholic church? No. There's rules in the Catholic canon of laws. There's rules on what designates a certain piece of real estate on this earth as a Catholic church. And one thing in particular is the presence in the form of statues of a statue of Mary, a statue of Joseph, and a crucifix with Jesus hanging on it, which to me is an abomination because it says that our Lord is still suffering, and that is a total contradiction of Scripture. Read Hebrews, read the whole book, Why not? But read Hebrews, because it clearly says Christ is done suffering. He only had to suffer once, and those priests in every Catholic church doing masses 1, 2, sometimes 3 times a day, killing Christ over again, causing him to suffer all over again for sins that he's already suffered for, that he didn't commit. So to me, but anyway, I got to thinking about this. There was one thing that God said to Israel in the Old Testament. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but I think this is in Deuteronomy. He said, remember the day that I met with you at Mount Sinai, which is Exodus 19, Exodus 20, and all throughout 20 and 30 and 32, Exodus 32, 33, and 34. Finally, Moses comes down from the mountain the second time with the copy of the Ten Commandments, and God said, during all that time, did you ever see me? No. You heard my voice, you saw the fire, you saw the smoke, you heard the trumpets, but you didn't see me. So you can't carve an image, you can't
slice your
make a
fucking
painting,
throat.
you can't draw a picture, you can't fathom what I look like. You have no idea what I look like, so therefore you really can't make an image of me and say it's me, because it's not. Because I haven't shown my face to anybody. And, we all have this Western idea of what we think Jesus looked like, this soft, long, brownish hair, beautiful, adoring face.
Hold on. I'll be right back, guys. to get another log type of, yes.
You know, on the old hymn books. That's probably not what he looked like, but we don't know. So you show me a carved image of a guy hanging from a cross, and I'm supposed to say that that's Christ. But how can I, when there were other people in the Roman Empire that were killed in that exact same way? Why couldn't that guy up there on the cross be one of the thieves on the cross? Because we didn't know what they looked like either. So the presence of the statue of Joseph, the statue of Mary, and the crucifix has to be in this building to even consider it to be a Catholic church. It has to have the presence of the Eucharist in it, which is the wafer. That's Christ to them. And I know that because there was a church that shut down or something like that. I was reading something.
Oh, they were gonna.
And they were gonna fire the priest. Well, when they fired the priest, he grabbed the Eucharist that was in the chapel and took it with him, removing the blessing of that church. In other words, they can't have church there because they lost their Jesus. He's not there anymore. I mean, this is silly rules, but it's their rules. They're the ones that made them up. God didn't make them up. But anyway, my point is, that statue of Joseph, they would point to that and say, that's Joseph. How? How is it Joseph? Let's say that statue is made out of wood. It's carved wood, or let's say it's ceramic of some kind, or let's say it's stone of some kind that was poured into a mold which is like a molten image. It was poured into a mold and set and painted, or it was carved out of rock or marble and decorated, or it was made out of wood and carved and overlaid and painted, and so on and so on and so on. But the idea is, you say that's Joseph, and I say, no, that's a stick of wood that you put the name of Joseph on there, but it's not Joseph. You point to this commonly held vision of the Virgin Mary with this white tunic on and this blue, light blue, sky blue robe on. She's the Queen of Heaven, so she's going to wear sky blue on her, and point to that idol and say, that's Mary. And I say, no, it's not. It's a piece of stone that somebody dug up out of a quarry. Some guy carved on it. Some guy painted on it. You hung it up there. You're trying to tell me it's Mary, but I'm telling you it's a rock is all it is. And then don't even get me started again on the crucifix. So try to convince me in a way that makes sense that when I walk in, let's say I'm going to convert to Catholicism. You want to convert me? Try to explain to me in a way that makes biblical sense how those statues there are going to cause me now to venerate. They remove themselves from, well, we don't worship idols. We venerate them. Okay, let's see. So you go in, the first thing you do when you walk into the Catholic Church is what? You bow. Bowing to what? The idols up on the stage. And you genuflect, you cross yourself, you get the holy water. What made that water holy? It's been sitting there all week, getting tepid. It's got flies. landed on it. It's got dust on it. What makes that water holy? It was blessed by the Pope in, 1,000-gallon drums at the Vatican, at Easter. I think is how it works. I think that's how it is. The Pope blesses a massive amount of water by saying magic Latin words and crossing this and sprinkling holy water on that, I guess, incense, and now the water is holy. And you have to dip your fingers in there and do this. Now you're holy for how long? Because that water doesn't let, apparently you got to do it again. Every time you walk into the church, you got to holy yourself with that magic water. It doesn't make sense. None of it does. That's a bowl of water. That's a stick that has a face carved in it that you say is Joseph, but there are no pictures in my Bible. None. So I can't know what Joseph looked like. I can't know what Mary looked like. I can't know what Jesus looked like. So telling me, just putting the names on there, because I know what they did in Rome. They had the statue of Saturn. They had the statue of Apollo. They had the statue of Zeus. They had the statue of Athena, and the statue of Persephone, and of all these goddesses, and the statue of Diana in Ephesus. And when Constantine became a Christian, they pried the nameplates off the statue and made new nameplates. This is Paul, okay? This is Peter over here. And that's the Virgin Mary instead of the fertility goddess, okay? Now she's anti-fertility somehow. It just doesn't make sense. And so Pope Benedict passed away. 95 years old, and to me it'd be horrible to follow Catholicism all your life, and that's what he did. He followed Catholicism all his life.
Last night, while you were asleep, he went to stand before God with the real Jesus sitting at the right hand of the Father, and he saw who the real Holy Father was, and it wasn't Benedict. It wasn't Joseph Ratzinger. It wasn't him. Now, I'd say pray for his family, but I don't know if he has any kids. Because we don't know. The new video came out. And I don't know if I was anticipating this one, but it came out last week, a couple weeks ago, something like that. It's a part of a series of videos done by a man by the name of David Paulides. Now, when you look at his name on a website or YouTube or the book that he wrote, it looks like, I couldn't figure out if it was Paul Ides or Paulides. It's Paulides. Then I watched some of the videos, and it's David Paulides. He was a Southern California cop and a detective for years. And did police work, knew how to do investigations and so on. And for somehow, some way, he got interested in cases of missing people at national parks all over the country. And he started getting case information. And he was appalled that it didn't, not only did he find out that the National Park Service, which is under the Department of Interior, they don't have statistics on how many people end up missing in national parks across the country. It seems like that would be somebody's job in the Department of Interior. There's a bureaucrat somewhere who sits at a desk, and I'm pretty sure he's supposed to keep track of that, and apparently they're saying nobody keeps track of it because nobody has a number for anybody. But number one, not only was he not getting any statistics on missing people in national parks, it seems like he was getting interfered with in his investigations. Like, go find something else to do. And what really struck me, the books he's written are called Missing 411. 411 is the code in America. If you dial 411, you get the phone company information service. Hello, information. Yeah, can you find me the number of a guy named Chuck in Pennsylvania? And that's what that's for. So missing 411, missing information. And it focuses on these people that, and there's a couple cases I'll point out to you, that their story of how they went missing, and in some cases, no evidence was found whatsoever. And I don't mean little evidence, I mean no evidence. Other than there's a person now that nobody in the world can account for. There's a missing person. Or
Pissing me off.
there are cases where
didn't know that about that torch.
remains have showed up
I could have kept that
in
one map.
scattered places
I should have
in
kept that map.
areas that were already searched thoroughly in. And none of that makes any sense. How can you search in an area? And if you know how they do grid searches, you've probably seen them on the news and whatever, that people line up probably about 10 feet apart. They say if you can't see the person next to you, if you can't see their ankles, you're too far away from them. And they do. They get a string and they make a grid in an area around where the person was last seen, and they start doing a grid search. Let's look for evidence. Let's look for his hat or their clothes or their shoes or some blood or a body or the kid, lying up, holding a squirrel, whatever. There's been children got lost in the forest and found. There was a case here a few years ago down south of here where a guy found a kid that had ended up missing, and after like 3 or 4 days, I think it was a dog that he had, he was a little kid, but he was alive. So anyway, one of the cases that to me was interesting was there was a little boy named Dior Kunz, and he went missing, July 10th, 2015, in Idaho. At a national forest called Salmon Chalice National Forest. Now, there's the town that's next to is a little town called Leadore, Idaho. Leadore, so you can imagine at one time it was an old mining town, and now it's not much of anything. But there's a town there, and you might get a phone signal if you're lucky. And literally, as you drive into town, you drive through town. There's only like 105 people in town. You drive through town, and if you stay on that road, you go right from a paved road to a gravel road. Keep going straight. The gravel road then turns into a rocky road. You can only do about 5 miles an hour, and then the road ends. That's the end of the world right there. Hey, if you ever wondered where a highway ends, go to Leadore, Idaho, because the end of the world is right there. It literally does stop in this national forest at a campsite. And when I say campsite, we're not talking about big RVs and stuff like that. There's no water, there's no electric, you're roughing it. But there's a nice little creek out there, Clearwater Creek, snow runoff and stuff like that. There's fish in it, things to do. So this family, man and his fiance, and the boy's not quite 3 years old. And so he has to be watched. Okay? Somebody that's 3 years old, you have to watch them. And they did. But the story was that the dad, he's a young man,
he caught some fish and came back to the camp and said, look at all these fish I caught. And they go, no way, you didn't catch those. Show us where. So I think it was his mom and dad that walked up there with him, and his fiance walking behind that group, and little Dior, they called him Little Man. He's walking with his mom, and he gets a little ways up toward where they're going to go to the creek, and he says, I don't want to go. So he turns around, and mom says, well, go back to Grandpa at the campsite. So apparently it was her grandpa, maybe, but the child knew him. So she kept turning around to make sure that he was walking into the camp and into the knowledge and presence of his grandfather, who was sitting, just at the campsite. It's daytime, around the fire, and the little boy's just going to play around there. So they go up there for a while, not 10-15 minutes, and come back because they found minnows, and the little kid likes to play with minnows and bugs and worms. So they were going to go get him and let him try to catch minnows. Well, they get to campsite and they ask Grandpa, where's Little Man? And he's right there. No, he's not. Ask Grandpa, where's Little Man? And he's right there. No, he's not. I just saw him. He was right there. So at that point, now, and you have to understand this, because you might think like I did at first. Yeah, Grandpa. I bet he's a dirty old man. You've only got 15 minutes here. Start the clock. Whatever you think that man could have done, he had to do in 15 minutes and leave no trace. Now, anybody, if you've ever, there's a show, you can watch it on YouTube, you can find it. There's one of the satellite cable channels will have this. It's called Forensic Files, and I just started watching it. I never watched it when it was on, but I just started watching it, and I can tell you that anybody that ever does a crime anywhere, they leave evidence. And people, believe it or not, will watch these shows like CSI and Forensic Files, and they'll watch these shows because they're planning on killing their husband or their wife. And they will take extraordinary measures to make sure that they don't leave evidence. And next thing you know, they're on the next issue of Forensic Files because they left evidence. They start, don't leave evidence. And next thing you know, they're on the next, and they'll watch these shows because they're planning on killing their husband or their wife. And they will take extraordinary measures to make sure that they don't leave evidence. And next thing you know, they're on the next issue of Forensic Files because they left evidence. They start, she hollers for the family to come down. They start doing their search for Little Man. They're walking around, they're hollering, screaming his name. I've done this before. We were preaching at a church and in Arkansas, and we let out. It was dark, it was summertime, and we couldn't find Lindsay. And she was about 11 or 12 at the time. And I mean, panic set in on me, and I am screaming her name because we'd never been to this place before. The pastor's good friends of ours, but turns out she was on the other side of the church building with some other girls from the church and having fun, not a care in the world. And when I finally found her, man, I wanted to cry and hug her like, I found you. But anyway, so they, within, probably 30 minutes to an hour, they call 911 on one cell phone peg. 911 instantly gets search and rescue out there. They come out there, and they start searching. Now again, so let's take this scenario that the child run off. So that means you have to try to take a guess. If the child is in a full run for 15 minutes, how far could a 3-year-old child get? So they search that area. They go to the creek
and it's got brush and branches and dead trees laying in it. They bring chainsaws out, they're cutting and clearing the creek to make sure he's not jammed under a log somewhere there. And they do this for so many miles or hundreds of feet of the creek to rule out the creek as a possible place he could be laying there or playing there or whatever. He's not there. They bring in dogs. And the last place that the grandpa saw him pretty much is where the scent started and stopped. There was no scent anywhere except that probably little swath that he walked up the trail with his mom and then turned around and went back. Other than that, no scent. The dogs don't get a hit on anything. Again, think of 15 minutes, and let's say Grandpa did something. Grandpa's getting a little crazy, and so he gets mad at the kid, knocks him out, ended up accidentally killing him. He's going to bury the kid in panic and make it look like he run off. 15 minutes. You have to think of what you're going to do. You have to do it, and then you have to cover it in a way that leaves no evidence whatsoever. See, it doesn't make sense, does it? So, they found no sign of any foul play. There's no blood in the camper. There's no blood in the car. There's no blood on Grandpa's jacket. There's no blood. There's no big rock with blood all over it. Again, there's one way in, one way out of this campsite, and they're the only ones there. And to think that somebody could have pulled in there, it's between two mountain ranges, so that's not going to happen. And the road to get there, if you don't take the road, you're not going. And if you do take the road, you're only going 5 miles an hour. My point is, nobody came in the camp and got him. At least they didn't do it on a car. If they did it on by foot, the dogs pick up the track. Or you figure, how far could this man have gotten in a dead run, carrying a 3-year-old child, or some woman, or whatever. And you search that area. No trace. No scent. No clothing. They didn't find his jacket. They didn't find his socks. They didn't find his little cap. They didn't find toenail clipping. They didn't find anything. No blood. No hair. No other sign there. Other than he's just missing. Okay? Or killed. There's no evidence that he was killed. There's no evidence that he was buried somewhere. There's no evidence that he was kidnapped. I mean, you have to think of this in a logical way. So now, let's do this. Here's what we normally do when we're searching. We search on land, north, south, east, and west, and cover a square or cover a circle. And you look in those 4 directions, and then, when you say it, then you look down. You look down in the earth. You're looking for the leaves or the grass or the rocks to be disturbed. You're looking for shovel marks. You're looking for a mound of dirt. You look for a mound of rocks. You look for a body. You're looking down in the earth. And he's not there.
I love this area.
We
so
just
cool.
don't look up, because in our minds there is that to us in just a purely scientific world where there's no gods, devils, spirits, nothing, then we leave up out of the equation, because people don't fly. Little boys don't float or get blown away in the wind, so we don't look up. We just don't. We don't look up in the skies. Is he up there somewhere? But when we add in the equation of what we know in the Bible exists. Principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness and spiritual wickedness. Where? Where are the spirits? Where is the spiritual wickedness going on? In high places. He came out with another video called Missing 411 The Hunted, and he deals with hunters that have gone missing. Okay, now I'm a woods hunter. My dad taught me, and my dad was good at it, way better than I am. And my son, Matthew, seems to have, the genes bypassed me and went to him. He's better at it than I am, and he gets it from both grandpas. They have keen eyes in the woods. They know the woods. I never was afraid of the woods when I was a kid. I lived next to a wooded area, and I knew every square foot of the woods for 2 miles behind our house. I explored it. I walked the creek.
You guys, I'll be right back. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next video.